There's a fine white powder sitting in a line along your grandmother's baseboards, and not a single ant, roach, or spider has crossed it in 40 years. You're standing in your kitchen on a Tuesday morning in July. You open the cabinet under the sink and something small and brown darts behind the pipes. Your stomach drops. You've seen one before, last week near the trash can. You told yourself it was a one-time thing, but now there are two. And if there are two, there are 200 you haven't seen yet. So you do what most Americans do. You pull out your phone. You search for an exterminator. And within 30 seconds, you're staring at a quote for $275 for the first visit, with a recurring monthly plan of $69 after that, for a problem your grandmother solved with a powder that cost her less than a dime. She didn't call anyone. She didn't panic. She just walked to her pantry, pulled out a bag she'd had for longer than some of her furniture, and laid down a thin line of dust so fine you could barely see it. And that was the end of it, every time, for every bug, her entire life. The American pest control industry generates over $23 billion a year. That's not a guess, that's the number, 23 billion. And the foundation of that industry was built in the late 1940s and early 1950s, when chemical companies that had manufactured wartime agents pivoted to the consumer market. DDT came first, then chlordane, then the organophosphates and pyrethroids that line the shelves of every hardware store in the country today. The message was simple, and it was repeated so often it became invisible. Bugs are a chemical problem. You need our chemicals. Pay us. Before that pivot, Americans handled pests the way they'd handled them for generations, with physical barriers, natural powders, and kitchen-made deterrents that cost almost nothing. These weren't folk remedies, they were practical methods, passed between households like recipes, refined over decades of use. They worked, they kept working, and they were free. But free doesn't generate revenue, so the knowledge got buried. Not through conspiracy, just through the slow, steady pressure of marketing, convenience, and a generation of Americans who were told that progress meant buying solutions in a spray can. By 1960, most households under 40 had never seen their grandmother's methods. By 1980, the methods weren't even in home economics textbooks anymore. The average American household now spends between $400 and $600 a year on pest control. Between the sprays, the traps, the plug-in ultrasonic devices that don't work, and the quarterly exterminator visits. $600 for something Nana handled with a 5-pound bag that lasted her 3 years. She never bought a single commercial pesticide, not one, and her house was cleaner than most operating rooms. But she never stopped doing it her way. Here's exactly what she used. The first method, the Diatomaceous earth dust line. This is the 10-cent powder. This is the one the pest control industry has spent 70 years hoping you'd forget. Diatomaceous earth is a soft, chalky powder made from the fossilized remains of tiny aquatic organisms called diatoms. You can buy a 4-pound bag of food-grade diatomaceous earth for about $9. That bag will last you years. The cost per application works out to roughly 8 to 10 cents. Here's how it works. Under a microscope, each particle of this powder looks like a tiny piece of broken glass. When an insect walks through it, those microscopic edges cut through the waxy coating on the bug's exoskeleton. Without that coating, the insect can't retain moisture. It dehydrates and it dies. There's no chemical involved, no poison, no fumes. The bug can't develop a resistance to it because it's not a chemical reaction, it's a physical one. That's like trying to develop a resistance to sandpaper. Here's exactly how Nana used it. She'd take a small squeeze bottle, the kind you'd use for ketchup at a diner, and she'd fill it about halfway with the powder. Then she'd go along every baseboard in the kitchen and bathroom. She'd give the bottle a light puff, just enough to leave a line of dust so thin it was almost invisible, along the baseboards, behind the refrigerator, under the stove, around the pipes, under every sink. She did this once in the spring and once in the fall. That was it. Twice a year, 8 minutes of work, Ants, roaches, silverfish, earwigs, beetles, none of them could cross that line and live. One important detail: make sure you buy food-grade diatomaceous earth, not pool-grade. Pool-grade is heat-treated and can be harmful to breathe. Food-grade is so safe that farmers mix it into grain storage to keep weevils out. You can literally eat it. Nana sometimes dusted it on her dogs to keep fleas off, and the vet never once told her to stop. The modern replacement is a spray can of synthetic pyrethroid insecticide that costs $8 to $12 per can, lasts maybe 2 weeks, leaves a chemical residue on your floors, and needs to be reapplied constantly because the bugs develop resistance within a few generations. You do the math on that one. The second method, the borax and sugar ant bait. If diatomaceous earth is your defensive line, this is your offensive weapon, specifically for ants. Nana called this her sweet trap, and it is devastatingly effective. You need 3 things: borax, which is in the laundry aisle of every grocery store in America, regular white granulated sugar, and warm water. Mix 1/2 cup of sugar with 1½ tablespoons of borax. Add 1½ cups of warm water and stir until everything dissolves. Soak cotton balls in the solution and place them on small squares of wax paper near wherever you've seen ant trails, along the countertop edge, near the window frame, beside the back door. Here's why this works so well. The sugar draws the ants in. They can't resist it. They drink the solution and carry it back to the colony. The borax doesn't kill them immediately. That's the genius. It takes 24 to 48 hours. In that time, the forager ants bring the solution back and feed it to the rest of the colony, including the queen. Within 3 to 5 days, the entire colony is dead. Not just the ants you can see, all of them. A tube of commercial ant bait gel costs about $7 and contains maybe a dozen applications. This homemade version costs roughly 35 cents per batch and makes enough to handle an entire house. Nana kept a mason jar of the solution in the back of her pantry from April through September. She'd just re-soak the cotton balls once a week. I remember watching her do it on Sunday mornings. She'd set out the cotton balls, pour her coffee, and say, "The ants work hard, but the borax works harder." Then she'd laugh at her own joke. She always laughed at her own jokes. The third method, the boric acid roach paste. This one is for the big problem, the one nobody wants to talk about, but half the country deals with at some point. Roaches. And this method doesn't just reduce them, it eliminates them. You need boric acid powder, which costs about $4 for a bottle that'll last you a year. You need plain white flour, and you need just enough water to make a dough. Mix equal parts boric acid and flour. About 1/4 cup of each is plenty. Add water a tiny bit at a time, just enough to make a thick paste like cookie dough. Roll it into small balls about the size of a marble. Place those balls in the dark, warm places roaches love. Behind the refrigerator, under the dishwasher, inside the cabinet hinges, behind the toilet, in the back corners of closets. The roaches eat the paste, which they're drawn to because of the flour. The boric acid destroys their digestive system. Same principle as the ant bait. They bring traces of it back to the nest on their legs and bodies. Other roaches ingest it through grooming. Within 1 to 2 weeks, you'll see dead roaches. Within a month, you won't see any. Nana made a fresh batch every January and placed 30 to 40 little balls throughout her house. She called it her annual insurance policy. And I can tell you, having spent every summer in that house from the time I could walk, I never once saw a roach. Not one. In rural Tennessee, in the summer, that's practically a miracle. A single exterminator visit for roaches costs between $150 and $300. Most companies recommend monthly treatments for at least 6 months. You could be looking at over $1,000. Nana's annual cost for the paste was about 20 cents. The fourth method, the bay leaf pantry guard. This one is so simple it almost feels like cheating. If you've ever opened a bag of flour or rice and found tiny brown beetles or little moths flying out, you've met pantry pests. Weevils, Indian meal moths, flour beetles. They get into everything. Nana's solution was bay leaves. Plain, dried bay leaves from the spice aisle. She placed one bay leaf inside every canister, every bag of flour, every container of rice, oats, cornmeal and cereal in her pantry. She also taped a few to the inside of the pantry shelves. The natural oils in bay leaves, specifically eucalyptol and cineol, are deeply repellent to pantry insects. They won't go near them. A jar of bay leaves costs about $3 and contains enough leaves to protect your entire pantry for a year or more. Replace them every 6 months to keep the oils potent. Compare that to throwing away $20 of infested flour and rice, plus buying pantry moth traps at $8 a pack that fill up and need replacing every few weeks. Nana had bay leaves in every dry good in her kitchen. When I asked her about it once, she said, "The bugs don't like the smell, and neither does your grandfather, so it keeps both of them out of my flour." That was her humor, dry as dust and twice as sharp. The fifth method, the cedar chip closet barrier. If you've ever pulled a wool sweater out of storage and found it full of tiny holes, you've been hit by clothes moths. The larvae eat animal fibers, wool, silk, cashmere. A single damaged sweater can cost you $50, $80, $100 to replace. Cedar chips are the old answer. The natural oils in red cedar, particularly plicatic acid and cedrol, repel clothes moths and their larvae. Nana kept small muslin bags filled with cedar chips in every closet, every dresser drawer, and inside every storage box. You can buy a large bag of red cedar chips for about $6. That's enough to fill 20 sachets that last up to 2 years before the oils fade. When the scent starts to weaken, you don't throw them out. You just lightly sand the chips with fine sandpaper, or put them in a paper bag and give them a few good rolls with a rolling pin to break open fresh surfaces. The oils come right back. Nana did this every spring. She had sachets that were 10 years old and still working. The modern moth industry wants you to buy cedar-scented plastic blocks for $15 a pack, or chemical mothballs that leave everything smelling like a closed-up attic and contain naphthalene, which is classified as a possible carcinogen. Nana's cedar chips cost about 30 cents per sachet, smelled like a forest, and lasted a decade with simple maintenance. The sixth method, the soap spray garden shield. This one moves us outside. If you grow tomatoes, peppers, squash, anything in a garden, you've dealt with aphids, whiteflies, spider mites, and all the other soft-bodied insects that turn your leaves yellow and your harvest into a disappointment. 1 tablespoon of plain liquid Castile soap, the real kind, not detergent, mixed with 1 quart of water in a spray bottle. That's it. Shake gently, spray directly on the affected leaves, top and bottom, in the early morning or late evening when the sun won't scorch the wet leaves. The soap dissolves the waxy coating on soft-bodied insects, same principle as diatomaceous earth, and they dehydrate within hours. 1 bottle of Castile soap costs about $10 and makes enough spray solution to last an entire growing season. A commercial insecticidal soap spray costs $8 to $12 for a single 24-ounce bottle, and they contain the same active principle, just with a fancier label and a garden-specific markup of about 800%. Nana sprayed her tomato plants every Wednesday morning. She was precise about it. She said the bugs have a schedule, so you better have one too. And her tomatoes looked like they belonged in a magazine. The seventh method. This is the surprising one, the cucumber peel ant deterrent. Most people don't know this, and honestly, I didn't believe Nana the first time she told me. But fresh cucumber peels placed at ant entry points repel ants on contact. Certain varieties work best, particularly the bitter-skinned kinds. The compound responsible is called cucurbitacin, and ants are so sensitive to it that they will reroute an entire trail to avoid it. Peel a cucumber. Place the peels directly on the windowsill, doorframe, or wherever ants are entering. Replace the peels daily for the first week. By day 3 or 4, the ants will have rerouted permanently. Then you can stop. The cost is a cucumber, maybe 70 cents, and it works within hours. Nana used this one specifically in the summer kitchen window, where ants would come in looking for water during dry spells. She'd peel a cucumber for her salad and just lay the peels along the window track. 2 purposes from 1 vegetable. That was her way. Nothing wasted, ever. I think about Nana's hands a lot, how they looked when she was working. She had strong hands, not delicate, not rough, just capable. You could watch her do something as simple as dusting a line of powder along a baseboard and know that she had done it 1,000 times before. There was no hesitation in any of it, no second guessing. She understood her house the way a mechanic understands an engine. Every sound, every season, every vulnerability. She didn't need someone to come in with a truck and a uniform and a clipboard to tell her she had a pest problem. She already knew, and she already had the answer. And that answer cost her almost nothing. That mattered to her, not because she was cheap. I want to be real clear about that. She wasn't cheap. She was principled. She believed that a home should be run with intelligence and care, and that spending money on something you could handle yourself was a failure of knowledge, not a sign of comfort. She'd say, comfort is knowing you can handle it. That's not a luxury, that's a skill. There's a generation of people watching this channel right now who remember that feeling. Who remember a grandmother or a mother or an aunt who could walk into a kitchen and fix a problem with something that was already in the pantry. That knowledge is not outdated. It is not quaint. It is some of the most practical, tested, effective knowledge this country ever produced. And it was nearly erased, not by time, but by someone who figured out they could sell you a replacement for something you already had. You don't have to let it stay erased. Next week, I'm going to share something Nana did every fall that I haven't talked about yet. She had a method for sealing windows and door frames against drafts using materials that cost less than $2 total, and it outperformed the commercial weather stripping that hardware stores sell for $15 to $20 per window. She called it her November ritual, and she started doing it during a winter in 1948 when the heating oil ran low and didn't come back for 3 weeks. That video is going to save some of you real money before this winter. Here's what I want to hear from you today. Of the 7 methods I covered, which one are you trying first this week? Drop it in the comments. I'm especially curious how many of you have seen someone in your family use the Diatomaceous earth dust line, because every time I mention it, someone writes in with a story about their grandmother doing the exact same thing. I love reading those. If this is your first time here, welcome. Hit subscribe so you don't miss our new videos. And if you got something useful out of today, share it with someone who's spending money they don't need to spend. That's what Nana would have done. I'll see you in the next one.